the beginning. So I want to welcome everybody that has come to our 31st SLiTHEr. We're very proud that we have made it this far in a little over a year and a half, I think, that we've been doing this. So 31 times. And so this is a very special occasion for us. We are sort of joining forces with the POGIL crew to tell us about POGIL resources in the classroom. So I will let our facilitators introduce themselves, and I will let you get started. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to see if I can. Can everybody see that first screen? We're good. Okay. So welcome. We're going to begin shortly, which is right now. And I want to make sure that everybody has the resources available. We did send an email out earlier in the day with the two activities we're going to be doing today. And I explained this is not a passive webinar. You're going to be working for the next hour or so. If you didn't get that email or you can't find it, then you can click those links that are on that first slide and you'll be able to see those activities. You won't be able to write on them, but you'll be able to see them. You then should probably have some paper and a writing utensil available to you as we go through this.
Wayne, could I ask you, could you put that link into the chat so that we can grab it?
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay. Let me introduce the facilitation team to you. We have Tim Herzog from Weber State University. Kimberly Mullane from Westchester University of Pennsylvania.
Hi.
And my name is Wayne Pearson. I retired in 2019 from the United States Naval Academy, and my colleagues tell me I have impeccable timing when it comes to that. So I'm probably the only person in the room that hasn't taught in a pandemic. We also have Marcy Dubroff, as her name's not on the slide, but Marcy Dubroff, the Associate Director of the POGIL Project, is here.
Hi. And
Julie Boldazar, who is our events coordinator from the POGIL Project, is also here. So hopefully the objectives, the outcomes that we'd like to get today is after you've attended this session, you get a better idea of what a POGIL classroom is all about because you've experienced what it's like to be a student in a POGIL classroom. You can list some desirable student learning outcomes from the POGIL classroom. And we really do hope you're inspired to continue seeking POGIL training opportunities because there are a variety of different opportunities available to you. So in the main room, we have some virtual procedures we'd like to follow. Open the Google slide deck and they'll have a link to that in a minute or two next to your Zoom window in a split screen format. That's the most useful format to do this in. Certainly use the raise hand function to let facilitators know you have something to say. You can find that in the reactions at the bottom of the Zoom window. I'm talking to people who taught in a pandemic. You guys know more about Zoom than I do. Please give the feedback using reactions or by adding comments in the chat. The chat will be open the whole time. The reactions are available. We do ask you that you stay muted unless you're asked to share because the feedback loops can happen. If you step away, please turn off your video. Otherwise, keep it on. And you can add questions to the parking lot. That's another live link. Let me put that also in the chat. So there is the link to the parking lot. You can put your questions in there. We will address those questions, as many as we can, at the end of the session. So we do want you to have access to this Google slide deck that we're using right now. That's the only way it can follow you into the breakout rooms. There's the link. I can also put that in there. So there is the slide deck. You can certainly use the Ask for Help button to call a facilitator. Facilitators will pop in periodically. They may just pop in, listen, leave. They may say something. You never know.
Wayne, so the first link, we're all getting access denied. So you might have to change your security settings on that document.
Everybody with that link should have access to that link. What happens when you click in the, That's for the activities?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you click in the Google slide deck or in the link in the chat.
You said, okay. So hang on. Let's just make sure. We've got anyone on the internet with this link can view. Those are the permissions it has right now.
It has a sign in required thing there. It looks like I don't think I can change that.
I don't know.
Yeah, here. Maybe it's not the right one. Can you try that link?
And
So I was able to get the link that Kim just put into the chat.
okay. All right. Okay.
The link to the drive, Wayne. I don't know if that's
for the entire
right,
drive. Okay, that's fine.
just to that document, but it's in the drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Okay. We'll sort out why Google lied to me later. Okay. All right. Everybody has access now? Okay, let me get that out of the way. There we go. Okay. Okay. So when you're in the breakout room, sometimes teams find it helpful to share the screen with the activity or Google Slides. That's up to you, whatever works best for you. Okay, so shortly we're going to be going into breakout rooms, and the first thing we want to do is explore the roles in a POGIL classroom. I think this is perhaps one of the major things that differentiates POGIL from other active learning environments. There is an emphasis on each member of the team having a role in producing the product for the team. And so if you have access again to the Exploring Roles activity, we're going to put you into the breakout room. As the first task, we'd like you to come up with roles for the members of your team. Alphabetize your first names. The first person in the list is going to be the manager. The manager then will assign the other roles to the remaining team members. We'd ask you to change your display name to reflect your role. So the example there, if you're in team 4 and your name is Martha and your last name begins with a T and you are the reflector, that should be your new name. And you can do that by the upper corner of your video slide, hitting the ellipsis, the 3 dots. That will allow you to rename yourself. And you only have 3 minutes to do this. If time remains, introduce yourself, where and what you teach. But the second task in the same breakout room session would be to look at the Exploring Roles used in POGIL Teams activity. Look at the questions, writing your answers down. Each team member writes out answers on their activity and shares that with the other members of the team. And again, it's very helpful if one member of the team shares their screen. That keeps everybody on track. If you finish early, add questions to the parking lot. I'm going to hesitate to put that link in myself at this point. But if the folder link works, then that parking lot link should work too. So we'll make sure that that's ready to go. And I think at this point, Tim, I think you've set up the breakout rooms. Do you want to go ahead and send them in?
Yep, we'll see you in there.
Okay. All right, I think everybody is back now. So you've had a chance to experience a role in a POGIL setting, at least in a team setting. And at this point, we just like to take any questions you might have about the specific roles. If you were a manager, what's the manager supposed to do? What kinds of questions do you have about the actual roles themselves?
So question number 6, there was a lot of good discussion about question number 6 and which 2 roles could be shared by what person. Is there a preferred way to do that? Because there was, I don't know, it seemed like you could do it a variety of ways.
I think the answer to that is yes, you could do it in a variety of ways. I mean, let's face it, this is set up for 4 people in a team. And sometimes students get sick. You have 3 people in that team and you need to combine that role. Some of it, I think, is up to the individual instructor and the individual team. I find the recorder reflector merging to be pretty reasonable because the recorder is actively working and probably is best able to reflect on how the team is working. But I can see other pairings working too.
I would just add to that in my classroom, students turn in a recorder copy and there's also reflector questions. So just from a logistical standpoint, it also helps if one person is uploading those files to the OneDrive that I look at. So that also helps.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing is to think about ways that you can reinforce each role in some way. So some people choose to have the manager being the only one who can ask a question. The spokesperson, the only person who can talk. The reflector submits a report of some kind. The recorder submits a report of some kind. Or, how can you think about in your class, like how can you reinforce the value of those roles and they're in a way that they see that? Because I think if you just say go into roles, do your thing, and you don't actively kind of reinforce it, it doesn't. They don't think that you care about it.
That's true, and even though there are 4 primary roles that are sort of the standard roles, the last question got to the point where you can assign different roles if you feel that fits your environment. And there's a lot of flexibility in roles, but you have to ask yourself, why am I having roles? What are my roles contributing to? And the bottom line is if they're contributing to the successful outcomes for the team, and focusing every member of that team on those outcomes, then they're doing the job you want them to do. Okay, so again, time is short. We probably should move right along. And I think I'm handing it off to Kimberly now. And we're going to take you back into a classroom experience.
Great. So we're going to be now doing a chemistry activity, atoms, molecules, particles. Oh my. It's the second file that Wayne sent out. So we're going to, as Wayne said, we're going to put you back in breakout rooms. And so just remember to fulfill your role that you chose in the first activity. Especially because you are all content experts. So this will not be a very challenging sort of activity for you to do. So if you can really try to, fulfill your role, to have that be the goal, that would be great. And also something to think about is Tim later is going to talk about the learning cycle that these activities are based on. So you may want to think about as you're doing the activity, there should be some questions that are asking you to simply explore the model. So literally just take things directly from the model and write them down. And then there may be some questions that are asking you more to invent a concept, and then some questions that are asking you to apply that concept to a new problem. So you may want to look at the activity through that lens as you're doing it as well. But Tim will talk more about that later. There is one question to answer in the slides. So if you have the slide deck open, your recorder should report your team's answer to 8C on the next slide, essentially. Yep. Cool.
If you're talking, Wayne, you're muted.
Just, well, yeah, some people would say that's a good thing. We had a great POGIL moment in team one when two people were talking, the third person wasn't. And then it was Matt who said, I guess if I'm really doing my job, I should really ask the other person if they agree. I said, yes, that is what it's all about. So. Okay, I think we're all back.
Okay, great. Should I wait for team one to add their definition of a particle, or should we?
Can you go ahead, because we ran out of time, and
Yeah,
it's probably going to take me a while to try to write it on the slide.
Okay. Well, remember again, there's not enough time today, and the process is more important than the end result.
Right. Yeah. But you can see how the students would report out their answers at the end, right? If you're remote, then this is a great way to do it. If you're in the classroom, then you might have the spokesperson write something on a whiteboard or orally share something out with the class. All right.
Okay. Okay. So you want to talk a little bit about student outcomes? The participants?
I think it seems useful for them to hear about how each other think about the problems. Like alternative ways to think about it that might not have occurred to them. Maybe gets them out of their box of the way they think a little bit.
I mean, working in a group and just interacting, getting along and coming to consensus with other people.
Yeah, and I also think that one of the common complaints about group work is that there's someone who's not pulling their weight. And by changing the role, sort of everyone has the ability to sort of take on each different type of task. So it draws people into the work in a different way.
Okay, so I'm sure there are other things that you could mention. Time is running short. We need to roll on. We're going to turn it over to Tim now. I'm going to stop sharing, and he's going to talk a little bit about the foundations of POGIL.
Thanks, Wayne. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So, I checked with a few folks, and they did have a hard stop at 4 o'clock Eastern. So I'm going to breeze through some of these a little bit, and I'll focus on some critical things about what POGIL is and what it means. So the term POGIL has two parts, and the first part is PO, which is process oriented, and this is really about what's going on in the classroom in terms of facilitation, a cooperative learning environment, and the focus is on the development of process skills, right? And we'll talk about the second part in a minute. And I think everybody who teaches chemistry is very familiar that there's a lot of skills that employers are after now that are not content-based. And in POGIL, we focus on a lot of those, and there's a lot more than these, but these are probably the ones that are most commonly addressed in terms of critical thinking and problem-solving communication. And I don't think it's a big stretch for any of you to appreciate that these are super important skills. I think chemists teach these all the time in lots of ways, but I think POGIL is ideally suited as a way to teach these. The second half of POGIL is guided inquiry-based and constructivism, and it's really about learning cycle activities. And so this is really in the structure of materials that you use for POGIL and the way that those are designed around a learning cycle. And the learning cycle involves exploration, invention, and application. The exploration is really where you look, where the questions guide you to find key specific pieces of information. And then the questions ask you to put those pieces of information together to invent new ideas, the concept invention step. and as Kimberly was talking about earlier. And then finally, to test those invented ideas by application, right? And this is all facilitated throughout, so it's not just this, group lost and alone, but there's a lot of feedback to kind of help check their concepts and as they're inventing them, and opportunities to try them out. As much as possible, we try to have data available to test their ideas as they're developing them. And so those 3 steps of exploration and concept invention and application are built into all of our POGIL activities. And really they help students to develop their own ideas and in a way that's much more individual than if I just told them, well, the way I thought about it, because students don't learn the way that we learned, and they don't learn the way that the other student learns. Everybody has their own path. And so those 2 things come together, the process-oriented part, development of process skills, and the inquiry-based learning cycle activities that really focus on constructing their knowledge in a meaningful way. So in a POGIL classroom, the students work in teams using roles to encourage engagement. And as you saw, and as you talked about, that's a really powerful thing. And I think a critical thing about the POGIL classroom is we have to kind of get over this paradigm of group work that people have faced before, where it's 2 people on a project work hard and 1 doesn't, and then there's a grade assigned to everybody. I don't think most people really assign a ton of grades to the work that's done in class. It's really about developing knowledge, and then the graded activities are usually separate. Usually it's more about participation that's more important and reflection that's more important. The faculty focus on facilitation, focus on helping students learn the process skills, guiding them through the learning cycle. And our role really changes from one of telling to one of guiding. It's not homework. A lot of people download POGIL activities or pseudo POGIL activities from the web and hand them to their class and walk away and say, here you go. That's not what it is, right? It really is much more facilitated in order for it to work. And it's not a practice worksheet. It's not fill in the blank. And just if you search POGIL activity for something, just because somebody writes POGIL activity on it doesn't mean that it's POGIL, and you should look for this little trademark at the bottom to represent that it was actually vetted by the POGIL project. And we have a very sophisticated process that we use to vet activities and to give really constructive feedback to authors as they go. So the POGIL project is a group of people. It's a nonprofit organization. It's people working together to try to create educational opportunities for faculty and students. And you can give them money if you really feel generous, if you're really inspired by this. But the project is currently led by Rick Moog. And if you met Rick, he's a really transformational guy in chemical education and in all of the lives of the people that are leading this workshop. It's a really rich project, and I would encourage you to get involved in it, because for me, it's been the richest professional development experience of my career, being involved in the POGIL project. Marcy's helped a lot with that part too. So, and talk to Marcy, because Marcy's kind of the face of the POGIL project in a lot of ways. There are a lot of opportunities to continue with the POGIL project. We have a lot of one-day workshops, which are kind of this workshop on steroids in some ways, plus a lot more opportunities to explore and learn. I would highly encourage attending a 3-day summer workshop. They're really incredible experiences where to work with like-minded educators, and you probably start off with facilitation, and then you can also learn how to do writing and learn how to do POGIL for labs. There are more advanced writers retreat. We've got an amazing opportunity coming up, this Climate Justice Symposium. And we have a conference in 2023. So if you do the summer workshops this summer, the national conference, it's not applied POGIL practitioner or advanced POGIL practitioners. I mean, what, advanced POGIL practice?
Advanced POGIL.
Yeah, so that is a super fun conference, about 60 or 70 people. It's going to be in Salt Lake. I live in Ogden, Utah, so it's going to be just down the road. It's going to be awesome. It's a great place to be in the summer if you're somewhere where it's hot and muggy. That's in 2023. And lots of other things, e-series and webinars. We have a great Facebook page where people share ideas and share challenges about teaching. And Wayne Pearson is the voice of some of the POGIL podcasts. So you can see his little cool microphone. And so these are all opportunities that we'd encourage you to check out. Here is our contact information for me and Kimberly and Wayne. And we encourage you to ask us questions, and we're running out of time for that, but there are 2 faculty members who also have been involved in authoring activities, Les Manor at BYU Idaho and Joe Keene. Kimberly and Wayne both have authored inorganic activities. None of the activities that have been written have been fully vetted by the POGIL project. So they're all in process in some form or another, but they're good starting points, I think, for a lot of us to use in the classroom and practice facilitation, and kind of with the goal of hopefully soon we'll have some published activities that you can use in your classroom. So Wayne and Kimberly and I have all used different activities at different times. Wayne and Kimberly have both authored quite a few of the ones that they've used, and these are some of the topics, just a sample of some of the topics that activities have been authored for, both at the foundational level and the advanced level. In my institution, we have both of those classes, but some people have one or the other, or some descriptive course or something like that. And so I think it definitely does work in organic chemistry, and a lot of us really think that inorganic chemistry is actually a perfect place to use POGIL. The concepts are so rich in inorganic chemistry, and it's I think, the applications are so interesting that there's it's a great opportunity for our field. So I went through that super fast. I know some of you may have already left because you had to go, but does anybody have any questions for those of you who are still here?
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah, go.
Absolutely.
Will we get a copy of the slides, because I'm interested in using the materials in an inorganic classroom, and I know you shared some emails. I'm sorry, my son is just waking up. I used Joseph Keene's, some of them, but Les Manor was the other one. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Les's activities are much more geared toward senior. They're more advanced.
Okay.
So like much harder core group theory and stuff like that is present in Les's things, and they're great examples. I think they're he hasn't really run them through the project, but there are great concept things in there, and I think the POGIL part of it is not maybe totally refined yet, but as a framework, like for your course, I think they're really good. And both Les and Joe and Wayne and Kimberly have both said that they would be happy to share things with people, and you could reach out to them if you want to use my name for Les. That's fine, because I think I'm the only one in this room who's collaborated much with Les.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and he's a great guy. And his activities are pretty cool, actually. He's got a lot of. I really like the examples that he has and the application questions he's developed. Are really cool.
Oh, I can only speak for myself, but I am probably going to release my activities through the PAC, which is the POGIL Activity Clearinghouse. I've had a couple submissions. I haven't looked at them in a couple of years. I'll be honest with you. I have been retired, but I will start putting things into the PAC, which doesn't mean they're perfect activities. They're just activities that are out there that it's a resource. And hopefully, we'll have more and more of those inorganic activities show up in the PAC. I would say from experience, you don't need a perfect activity to run a POGIL classroom. Everybody wants one, right? We want the perfect thing that's going to work. Well, I can't remember ever giving a perfect lecture. And I certainly didn't write perfect activities to begin with. Every activity I ever wrote has been revised at least once, if not twice, if not 3 times. You learn so much by doing that, and so much by using them. But I think the fundamentals of the classroom, the facilitation, can make up for a not perfect activity. So if you're aware of your students and you work with your students, you will learn as much as your students learn in a POGIL classroom. That's the one insight that I got. You will learn what they're thinking, and that's a huge advantage when it comes to teaching. So I looked in the parking lot. Everybody's left the parking lot. The parking lot's empty. But does anybody have any more questions?
All right. Well, I thank you, Wayne and Kimberly and Tim, for facilitating, and Marcy, of course, for facilitating today. This learning about POGIL. It's a great resource for us inorganic chemists out there. So thank you very much. And I also encourage the participants to fill out the review. We use this so that we can refine how we offer our SLiTHER webinars. So please do so. And
if I can add one last thing to what Tim said,
Mm-hmm.
that it would be great in inorganic chemistry. Inorganic chemistry has the single best chemical model there is. We have the periodic table. That is our model. And you can't beat that for a model. So we should own it.
Oh, we do own it. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Okay, sorry.